In 1910, a 2-year-old German immigrant in New York City controlled zero government policy. By 1913, his blueprint became federal law. By 2025, that law would govern $38 trillion in national debt and make your dollar worth less than 4 cents of what it was worth when it started. His name was Paul Warburg, and the system he built didn't die when he did. It evolved. It spread. It became the invisible architecture of your entire financial life. This isn't conspiracy. This is documented history. The Federal Reserve's own archives confirm it. The meeting notes exist. The Jekyll Island participants themselves admitted it in 1930. Before we go through the 6 architects who built this system, you need to understand what financial control actually looks like. Not in textbooks. In practice, it doesn't look like chains. It doesn't look like prison bars. It looks like a mortgage you can't escape. It looks like a paycheck that buys less every year. It looks like a credit card balance that grows faster than your savings. It looks like working harder and falling further behind while being told the economy is strong. Real control is invisible. It doesn't need violence. It needs only one thing: control of the money supply. Control what money is. Control who creates it. Control what it costs to borrow. And you control everything else without lifting a finger. 6 architects, 112 years, a cage with no visible bars. And in the final section, I'll show you exactly how every dollar you earn, spend, and save flows through the architecture they built in 1910. Let's start with the original blueprint, London, 1694. William Paterson was 36 years old. He was not a banker by training. He was a Scottish merchant and colonial speculator, a promoter of schemes, a man who had made his fortune in West Indies trade through methods his contemporaries called questionable. Some historians suggest his early wealth came from dealings that bordered on piracy in the Bahamas. England was desperate. King William III was fighting the 9 Years' War against France. The treasury was empty. Traditional lenders, the goldsmiths who had previously financed the crown, refused new loans. Why? Because in 1672, King Charles II had borrowed heavily from these same goldsmiths, then announced he simply wouldn't pay them back. The credit was gone. No private lender would touch the English crown. Here's how Paterson's mechanism worked. He gathered 268 investors. They pooled £2 million. This gold was lent to the government at 8% annual interest. That's 96,000 pounds per year. Every year, forever. Let me show you exactly what that meant. The loan would never be repaid. Only interest. Perpetually. In exchange, Paterson's investors received a royal charter creating the Bank of England with the exclusive privilege to issue banknotes. Paterson himself reportedly said the bank would have benefit of interest on all monies, which it creates out of nothing. But here's the critical detail that changes everything. The bank didn't just lend existing money. It created new money backed by government debt. The government's promise to pay became the currency itself. Debt became money. And since the debt was never repaid, the interest payments became permanent. A perpetual transfer of wealth from taxpayers to bondholders. Within 4 years, England's national debt went from £2 million to £16 million. By 1815, it was £885 million, largely due to compounding interest. Those who resisted this system were marginalized. Those who embraced it became wealthy beyond imagination. The first bar of the cage was in place. Permanent debt. Interest forever. Currency created from promises. But they needed more. Let's jump forward 119 years. Brunswick, Georgia, November 1910. 6 men stepped off Senator Nelson Aldrich's private railcar at a remote train station. They carried shotguns. They claimed they were going duck hunting on Jekyll Island. Nelson Aldrich was 69 years old. He was not a banker either. He was a former grocery clerk from Rhode Island who had risen to become the most powerful senator in America, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. The press called him the general manager of the nation. His daughter Abby had married John D. Rockefeller Jr., making Aldrich the father-in-law of America's wealthiest dynasty. The Panic of 1907 had shattered public confidence in American banking. The stock market had crashed 50% from its peak. Banks failed. The Knickerbocker Trust collapsed. One man, J.P. Morgan, had personally bailed out the financial system from his private library on Madison Avenue. He locked the doors. gathered the trust company presidents inside, and forced them to sign a pledge at 4 a.m. to contribute funds for a bailout. $6 million for one round, then another $10 million. Morgan himself had contributed $30 million through a syndicate. Here's how the post-panic mechanism worked. Congress passed the Aldrich-Vreeland Act in 1908, creating the National Monetary Commission. Aldrich became chairman. He spent 2 years touring Europe, studying central banks. Then he assembled his secret team. The 6 men at Jekyll Island represented approximately 1/4 of the world's wealth. Paul Warburg of Kuhn, Loeb and Company, the German banker who had been pushing for an American central bank since 1902, Henry Davison, senior partner at J.P. Morgan and Company, Frank Vanderlip, president of National City Bank and representative of Rockefeller interests, A. Piatt Andrew, assistant secretary of the Treasury, Charles Norton, president of Morgan's First National Bank of New York, and Aldrich himself. But here's what historians often miss. They used only first names Nelson, Harry, Frank, Paul, Piatt, Arthur to prevent the trained staff from recognizing them. They called themselves the First Name Club. They denied the meeting happened for 20 years. The secrecy wasn't paranoia, it was strategic. As Vanderlip later admitted, if the public knew that Wall Street bankers had written a banking bill, that bill would have no chance of passage. Within 9 days, they drafted what would become the Aldrich Plan. It created a central bank with the power to issue currency, set interest rates, and serve as lender of last resort. Those who later opposed the plan, the populists, the progressives, the rural Democrats saw it correctly as a surrender to the money trust. But they couldn't stop it. The second bar was in place, a blueprint for permanent central banking control, disguised as reform. Now let's look at the third architect, Washington, D.C. December 1913. Woodrow Wilson was 56 years old. He was not a banker or a financier. He was a former professor and university president, an academic, a progressive Democrat who had campaigned against the money trust and Wall Street concentration. The Aldrich Plan had failed politically. It was too obviously a banker's bill. Democrats controlled Congress after the 1912 elections. The public distrusted anything with Aldrich's name on it. The Peugeot committee hearings had exposed the interlocking directorates of Wall Street, revealing that a small group of men controlled the boards of banks, railroads, and industrial corporations worth billions. Here's how Wilson's mechanism worked. He took the Aldrich Plan and repackaged it. Instead of one central bank, there would be 12 regional Federal Reserve banks. Instead of banker control, there would be a Federal Reserve Board appointed by the president. The changes were cosmetic. The core architecture remained identical. Let me show you exactly what that meant. The Federal Reserve would have the power to create money from nothing, just like the Bank of England. It would set interest rates. It would serve as lender of last resort. It would buy and sell government bonds, monetizing federal debt exactly as Patterson had done in 1694. Frank Vanderlip himself later wrote that the essential points of the Aldrich Plan were all contained in the Federal Reserve Act. But here's where it gets darker. The bill passed the House in September 1913. The Senate debated through December. On December 23, 1913, 2 days before Christmas. While many senators had already left for the holidays, Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law at 6:00 p.m. The vote was 43 to 25, with 27 senators absent or abstaining. Within 11 months, the 12 Federal Reserve banks were operational. Within 3 years, America entered World War I, and the Fed began its first massive expansion of the money supply. Currency in circulation more than doubled from $465 million to $1. $247 billion in just 6 months of 1917. Congressman Charles Lindbergh Sr. said on the House floor that the act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. He warned that from now on, depressions will be scientifically created. He won the rhetorical battle, but he lost the war. The third bar was in place. America now had a central bank with the power to create currency from debt. Here's where the pattern accelerates. New York City, August 1971. Richard Nixon was 58 years old. He was not a banker or economist. He was a politician facing re-election with an economy in trouble. Inflation was rising. Foreign governments, especially France, were exchanging their dollars for American gold at $35 per ounce. The gold reserves were draining. Here's how Nixon's mechanism worked. On August 15, 1971, without consulting Congress or the Federal Reserve, Nixon went on television and announced that the United States would temporarily suspend the convertibility of dollars to gold. Let me show you exactly what that meant. The gold constraint was gone. The Federal Reserve could now create unlimited dollars backed by nothing but government debt. The temporary suspension became permanent. No country ever again redeemed dollars for gold at a fixed rate. The world's monetary system had shifted from commodity backing to pure faith in the U.S. government's promise to pay. But here's the critical detail that changes everything. Without the gold constraint, money supply could expand exponentially. And it did. The M2 money supply went from $4, 6 trillion in 2000 to $19, 5 trillion in 2021. In 2020 alone, approximately 20% of all dollars ever created, $3. 4 trillion came into existence in a single year. The purchasing power of your dollar tells the story. What cost $1 in 1913 now costs over $31. Your dollar has lost more than 96% of its value. This is an accident. This isn't failure. This is the mechanism working exactly as designed. Those who held gold saw their wealth preserved. Those who held dollars watched their savings evaporate. Andrew Jackson had killed the Second Bank of the United States in 1836, calling it a hydra of corruption. He won his battle. Within 3 decades, America experienced the Panic of 1837, the Panic of 1857, and the chaos of Civil War financing. The bankers returned, stronger than before. The fourth bar was in place. Money creation without constraint. Inflation without limit. But the cage wasn't complete. One escape route remained. The modern system required one more element: total debt integration. Washington, D.C., 2025. The Federal Reserve System is 112 years old. It controls interest rates that determine the cost of every mortgage, every car loan, every credit card balance in America. It has created more than $5 trillion in new reserves since 2008. The national debt has reached $38 trillion, $112. 881 for every man, woman, and child in America. The average American household now carries $105. 56 inches total debt. Here's how the final mechanism works. The Federal Reserve doesn't directly tax you. It does something more elegant. It creates new dollars, which dilutes the value of your existing dollars. When you work 40 hours and earn a paycheck, inflation ensures you can buy less than you could last year. When you save money in a bank account earning 5% interest. While inflation runs at 3%, you lose purchasing power every single day. The government borrows trillions from the Fed, which creates the money to buy treasury bonds. The interest on that debt, now approaching $1 trillion per year, comes from your taxes. You pay interest on money created from nothing, loaned to the government that claims to represent you, by a quasi-private institution whose shareholders remain obscured. The average American carries $6, 523 inches credit card debt at interest rates above 24%. Total household debt has reached $18, 59 trillion, a record. Student loan debt stands at $1, 65 trillion. Medical debt, auto loans, mortgages that take 30 years to pay off if you're lucky. This should have been the end, but it wasn't. The system isn't about making you poor. It's about making you dependent. You cannot buy a house without their mortgage. You cannot get an education without their loans. You cannot start a business without their credit. You cannot save for retirement without their inflation eating your nest egg. You cannot escape the system because the system is the only game in town. In 1694, Patterson's mechanism extracted wealth through perpetual interest on government debt. Check. Today, the U.S. pays nearly $1 trillion per year in interest alone. In 1694, the Bank of England created money backed by government promises. Check. Today, the Federal Reserve creates trillions backed by treasury bonds. In 1910, 6 men met in secret to design a central bank that would control American money. Check. Today, 7 Federal Reserve governors and 12 regional bank presidents set interest rates that affect every dollar you earn. In 1913, the Federal Reserve Act gave a quasi-private institution the power to expand and contract the money supply. Check. Today, the Fed's balance sheet exceeds $7 trillion. In 1971, Nixon removed the gold constraint. Check. Today, the dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power since the Fed's creation. In 2025, total government debt exceeds $38 trillion, growing by $70. 843 every second. Check. We're not approaching the pattern. We're deep inside it. You wake up in a house you don't own, the bank does until you make 360 monthly payments. You drive to work in a car you're still paying off. You earn a paycheck denominated in dollars the Federal Reserve creates. You watch prices rise every year while being told inflation is under control. You save for retirement in a 401k, whose gains barely keep pace with the devaluation of the currency. You cannot buy a home without a mortgage they approve. You cannot build credit without debt they track. You cannot start a business without loans they price. You cannot retire without investments that depend on their interest rate decisions. You cannot even die without your estate paying debts and taxes. Every dollar you earn flows through the architecture built on Jekyll Island. Every dollar you save loses value according to their schedule. Every dollar you borrow enriches the system that created it. And you cannot escape it. 6 architects, 112 years. 1 cage. Patterson created perpetual debt. Aldrich designed the blueprint. Wilson signed it into law. Nixon removed the constraints. The Federal Reserve institutionalized it. The modern debt economy made it inescapable. Each piece built on the last. Each piece made escape harder. Together, they created the financial architecture you were never meant to see. They won't teach you this. They'll teach you that the Federal Reserve prevents financial panics, but not that there have been 18 recessions since its creation. They'll teach you that central banking provides stability, but not that the dollar has lost 96% of its value. They'll teach you that inflation is a natural economic phenomenon, but not that it's a direct result of money creation. They'll teach you that the system is managed by neutral experts, but not that those experts were chosen by the banks they regulate. But the architects knew better. Congressman Lindbergh warned in 1913 that the financial system has been turned over to the Federal Reserve Board. That board administers the finance system by authority of a purely profiteering group. Frank Vanderlip wrote in his autobiography that he felt as secretive, indeed, as furtive as any conspirator during the Jekyll Island meeting. The Federal Reserve Act exists. The meeting at Jekyll Island is confirmed by the Fed's own historical archives. The purchasing power data is published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The national debt is tracked to the penny by the Treasury Department. You cannot vote your way out of a system that funds both parties. You cannot earn your way out when inflation outpaces your raises. You cannot save your way out in a currency designed to lose value. But you can see it, and seeing it changes everything. The cage has no door, but now you can see the bars.